The broadcast. The first reports came out of South America. A mining town in the Andes had gone dark, its entire population silent, its emergency channels offline. At first, governments thought it was a landslide or a communications blackout. Then the videos started leaking. Grainy, shaky footage, men and women stumbling through the streets, eyes clouded white, flesh torn, moving with unnatural jerks. They weren't screaming. They weren't begging. They were hunting. The world laughed at first. Internet forums lit up with "zombie apocalypse confirmed" memes. But within 72 hours, the laughter had stopped. The infection spread across borders with terrifying speed. It wasn't a virus in the traditional sense, it was something else, something older, something that rewired the human body and erased the mind. By the time Washington and Beijing coordinated their first joint response, 5 major cities had fallen. Nuclear strikes were considered, and rejected. Too many civilians, too much unknown. That was when Dr. Helena Vera, head of the Global Astrobiology Network, made her proposal. "We send a message," she told the UN Emergency Council, her voice trembling yet resolute. "Not to our own, not to any surviving nation, but out there." She pointed upward, to whoever might be listening. The council chamber went silent. The room full of generals, presidents, and ministers, men and women who had built their lives on the illusion of control, stared at her as if she were mad. "You're suggesting," the French delegate said slowly, "that we ask for alien help." "I'm suggesting," Helena replied, "that if this pathogen isn't natural, if it's engineered, or worse, extraterrestrial, then the only entities who might understand it aren't on Earth. And even if it is natural, we no longer have the luxury of pride. If someone hears us, someone advanced, we have nothing to lose." The Americans objected. The Russians scoffed. The Chinese weighed silence against pragmatism. But as images from Sao Paulo and New Delhi flooded the feeds, streets littered with corpses, military units swallowed alive, helicopters falling from the sky, the vote became unanimous. Earth would cry for help. The broadcast went out on the 4th week of the outbreak. It was simple. No encryption. No politics. Just a desperate human plea. To anyone who can hear us, we are humanity. Our world is dying. The dead walk. The living fall. We do not understand what we face. If you have knowledge, if you have mercy, help us. This is Earth. It was repeated on every frequency humans could generate. Radio, microwave, laser, neutrino. A signal flung like a lifeboat into a black ocean. Most scientists believed it would never be heard. Space was vast. Civilizations, if they existed, were likely far too distant. Even light took years to travel between stars. Humanity had screamed into the void before, and the void had always been silent. But this time, the void answered. It happened 17 days after the broadcast. A ripple appeared in Earth's orbit, a distortion like heat haze. Satellites caught it first, shimmering edges bending starlight, the unmistakable curvature of something emerging from folded space. Military radars lit up, fighter squadrons scrambled, nuclear launch codes flickered active. Humanity had asked for help, but it was also terrified of the answer. The object revealed itself slowly, peeling out of the distortion like a leviathan rising from the depths. It wasn't sleek like human spacecraft, it was brutalist, angular, alive with shifting lights that weren't mere windows but pulsating nodes, like neurons firing. Its hull seemed to rearrange itself as it stabilized in orbit. The world held its breath. Then, without warning, every screen on Earth flickered. Black. Phones, computers, military monitors, even analog televisions powered off for decades came alive, their dead glass filling with static before forming symbols, alien script, incomprehensible yet strangely deliberate. After 3 seconds, the symbols dissolved. A voice followed, not mechanical, not human, deep, layered, ancient. "We heard you." Every human being on Earth froze. The voice continued, "You called into the dark. We listened. We know what hunts you. You should not have woken it." Panic erupted. Governments screamed over secure lines. Religious leaders declared prophecy fulfilled. Conspiracy theorists howled vindication. But amid the chaos, Helena Vera stood before the cameras, her face pale but steady. "This is Dr. Vera," she said, speaking into the void, to the entity that has answered. We need more than riddles. What is happening to us? What are these things? The screens flickered again. The voice returned, slower, as if measuring its words. They are your dead, rewritten, not by plague, not by chance. Long ago, the dead were chosen. A seed was planted in your kind, hidden in your marrow, waiting for the time when the signal would awaken them. That time is now. The words fell like thunder. Hidden in your marrow, waiting, awakened. Humanity hadn't been attacked from the outside. This wasn't a virus that spread from one to another, it was something buried inside them all along. A biological failsafe, a sleeper weapon, but whose, and why? Helena's voice cracked. Can it be stopped? For the first time, the alien voice hesitated. There is a way. But it is not mercy. It is not survival as you know it. It is a choice. The transmission cut. The screens went dark. Above Earth, the alien Leviathan remained, silent, vast, unblinking. Below, cities burned, streets filled with the sound of gnashing teeth and tearing flesh. Humanity had begged for salvation, and had received only a warning. Now the world faced a new, terrible question. Had they invited the silent envoys? The alien ship did not move. It hung above Earth like a second moon, casting shadows across the clouds, ignoring every desperate hail from every channel humans could conceive. The world waited for its judgment, and in the meantime, the dead multiplied. By now, no continent was untouched. London was a blackened ruin. New York had sealed its bridges and tunnels, but the infected swarmed across rivers like ants. Africa's megacities burned one by one. Humanity's greatest weapons, tanks, drones, missiles, slowed them, but nothing stopped them. The infected didn't fear death, didn't flee, didn't tire. And worse, some of them were learning. Helena Vera watched through a cracked monitor in Geneva's underground research hub. A military drone streamed footage from the outskirts of Berlin. Hordes of the creatures pressed against barricades, clawing, biting, shrieking. But among them, only two, moved differently. They coordinated. One hurled burning debris at the defenders while the other led the pack in a concentrated charge. It was the first time anyone had seen the infected act with strategy. Helena's heart sank. If the seed inside them was evolving, if the dead could organize, humanity's time was nearly gone. That was when the aliens finally spoke again. At 2:14 Greenwich Mean Time, the sky above Geneva lit up as a shard of the alien Leviathan detached. It wasn't a drop pod in the human sense. It was liquid metal given form, a teardrop of living alloy that fell without fire or sonic boom. It simply appeared above the ground, decelerated, and landed with impossible grace. Soldiers swarmed it instantly, guns trained, fingers trembling, orders shouted. The surface of the pod rippled, and from it stepped the envoys. There were 3 of them, tall as men but thinner, elongated, as if their bodies had been stretched by some unseen hand. Their skin shimmered like oil on water, colors shifting in patterns no human eye could fully understand. They had no mouths, no eyes, only smooth faces that seemed to pulse faintly, as if lit from within. The soldiers nearly fired. The only thing that stopped them was Helena herself, who shoved past the barricades, her heart pounding, her mind screaming that this was history unfolding. She raised her hands. I'm Drive, Helena Vera. You heard our call. One of the beings tilted its head. Then, without moving its body, a voice bloomed inside every skull within 50 meters. We are the Kethari. You summoned us. You asked for truth. The soldiers flinched, some crying out. The voice wasn't sound, it was thought, pressed directly into the mind, intimate and inescapable. Helena swallowed her fear. Then give us the truth. What are these creatures? What's happening to us? The Kethari stood still, their colors flickering across their bodies like tides shifting. Finally, the central envoy spoke again. Long before your species rose, another walked this world. They seeded the marrow of your kind with a failsafe. The dead that rise now are not accident, they are inheritance. Helena felt her chest tighten. Inheritance. From who? From those you call the architects. They crafted your kind, shaped your evolution. But in shaping you, they feared you. They left behind a chain. If ever your species grew beyond control, the chain would pull tight. And now, The chain tightens. A soldier spat on the ground. You're saying we were, bred like cattle, programmed to destroy ourselves. The Kethari envoy turned toward him. The colors on its skin darkened to a deep, furious crimson. Not to destroy yourselves. To be destroyed. This is not plague. It is execution. The word spread like fire. Within hours, every government knew. The outbreak wasn't random, it was deliberate, embedded in humanity's very biology, waiting for an unseen signal. Protests erupted in the few cities still standing. Priests cried that the end times had come. Conspiracy theorists shouted that the architects were humanity's true gods. And deep in military bunkers, generals asked themselves the only question that mattered: could this be fought? Helena demanded an answer from the envoys. You said there's a way. A choice. What is it? The Kethari paused again. Their silence was worse than words. The architects built only one escape. It requires purging the seed from every living human. That purge will kill billions. It will leave only a remnant of your kind, those who are immune. The alternative is extinction, consumed by your own dead. The chamber erupted. Soldiers cursed. Scientists gasped. Helena's voice was a whisper. You're telling us to cull our species. We are telling you the only way to remain. For the next 3 days, humanity wrestled with the impossible. Kill billions in a desperate attempt to save a fraction, or gamble everything in hope the infection burned itself out. Meanwhile, the infected spread faster. Entire countries disappeared into silence. The oceans filled with drifting ships, their crews turned. Nuclear powers fired warheads into their own cities. The air smelled of ash, the ground of blood. Helena walked the ruined streets of Geneva, guarded by soldiers, her mind a storm. She had spent her life searching the stars for proof humanity wasn't alone. Now she had her answer, and it was worse than loneliness. They weren't alone. Humanity was a mistake someone had planned to erase. At night, she stared at the alien Leviathan glowing above Earth. Were the Kethari saviors, or scavengers, circling a doomed world for scraps? Then came the second broadcast. Every screen on Earth lit up again, hijacked by the Kethari. This time, the image wasn't symbols, it was something worse. A vision. Every human saw it differently, but the essence was the same. Vast halls of black stone. Colossal figures, taller than skyscrapers, faceless yet watching. And beneath them, humans, millions of humans, kneeling, chained, waiting to be judged. The voice followed. The architects do not return. But their design remains. You were made to end. We offer you this. Sever the chain. Purge yourselves, and live crippled but free. Or refuse, and perish entire. The vision ended. In the silence that followed, humanity realized the truth. They had begged for help. And the help they received was nothing like salvation. It was a knife placed in their own hands, with the choice to cut deep, or be consumed. Helena's hands trembled as she wrote her report. 2 choices. 1. Release the Kethari purge, killing billions to sever the hidden seed. 2. Refuse, and face total extinction within months. No third option had been offered. But deep down, Helena wondered. Was there really only 2? The third path. The war rooms were louder than the cities burning outside. Every surviving government had representatives gathered in subterranean bunkers, their faces illuminated by screens showing maps that grew redder by the hour. Red meant lost territory. Red meant silence. Red meant the dead. The choice before them was impossible. Release the Ketharis, purge, a genetic fire that would burn through humanity's bloodlines, killing billions to sever the architect's seed, or gamble on survival against an enemy that multiplied endlessly. General Kato of Japan slammed his fist on the table. We can't debate this for weeks. Every hour costs us another city. By the time we agree, there will be nothing left to save. The U.S. delegate leaned forward, eyes sunken, voice like gravel. And if we release this purge, what then? Half of us die, maybe more. Who decides who lives? Who decides whose blood is spared? Silence followed. No one wanted to admit what the Kethari had implied, that their cure was not selective. It would sweep the planet like a storm. Survivors would be random, immune by accident, not choice. Humanity would be shattered, a fraction of what it once was. And that was assuming the Kethari were telling the truth. Helena sat at the end of the long table, her hands folded, her mind running faster than her body could bear. She wasn't a general. She wasn't a politician. She was a scientist who had spent her life searching for proof of the unknown, and now that proof was standing on Earth's doorstep, demanding that her people mutilate themselves to survive. But something gnawed at her. Something the Kethari had said. The architects do not return. But their design remains. If the architects were gone, then who had triggered the seed? Who had woken the dead? And why now? Later, in the dim quiet of the Geneva Research Hub, Helena pored over everything they had collected from the outbreak. Genetic scans of the infected. Samples of their marrow. Comparisons with ancient DNA records. She worked until her eyes bled from exhaustion, until her body trembled from hunger. That was when she found it. Buried in the genome of the infected, amid the chaos of mutations, was a signature. A repeating pattern that did not belong. It was too clean, too deliberate, like code. And more than that, it was broadcasting. She leaned back, horrified. The dead weren't just rising. They were signaling. Every infected body, every gnashing mouth, was a transmitter. The seed wasn't just awakening the dead, it was sending a message into the void. But to who? She didn't have to wonder long. The answer was obvious. The architects, or whatever remained of them. Helena brought her findings to the council. "Listen to me," she said, her voice cracking from lack of sleep. "This outbreak isn't just an execution order. It's a beacon. Every corpse that rises sends a signal. Someone, or something, out there is listening. The Kethari want us to believe the architects are gone, but I don't think they are. Not entirely. They planted this seed for a reason, and now it's calling them home." The chamber erupted in disbelief. "That's conjecture. We don't have time for myths. Even if it's true, it changes nothing." But Helena slammed her fist on the table. "It changes everything. If the architects are returning, then purging ourselves won't stop them. They'll come anyway, and then we won't just be facing the dead, we'll be facing our creators." Her words silenced the room. Even General Cato, who rarely showed fear, looked pale. "So what do you suggest?" he asked quietly. Helena's throat was dry. "We find a third path. Not their purge, not extinction, something they don't expect." The council fractured after that. Some wanted to gamble on the purge, others demanded immediate deployment of nuclear weapons against the largest infected zones. A few, just a few, backed Helena's mad proposal to search for another option. It was those few who secretly gave her what she needed: a small strike team, a single aircraft, and clearance to pursue the impossible. Because if the infected were broadcasting, she needed to know where the signal was going. The aircraft cut through the ash-filled skies above Europe. Below, cities glowed with fires that never went out. Herds of the dead moved like rivers, following sounds, smells, vibrations. Humanity had lost the surface. Helena sat strapped beside her escorts, Captain Elias Merrick, a grizzled soldier with a scar down his jaw, and two younger operatives whose eyes carried the hollow look of men who had seen too much in too little time. "Explain this again," Merrick growled, over the roar of the engines. Helena held up a datapad, showing the pulse of the signal. "Every infected emits this frequency. It's low, almost undetectable, but constant. When we mapped it, we found something strange. All the signals are converging, like threads being pulled to a needle." Merrick squinted. "Converging where?" Helena's eyes darkened. "The Arctic. Greenland. An old glacier site. A place humans haven't touched in millennia. They landed on the ice 2 hours later. The world was eerily quiet here, far from cities, far from the screams. The wind howled, the snow cut like knives, but there were no dead. At least, not yet. The signal was strongest here. Helena could feel it vibrating in her teeth, in her bones. A pulse like a heartbeat beneath the ground. They trekked across the frozen wasteland until they found it, a fissure in the ice, glowing faintly blue. The signal bled from it, a steady rhythm, alive and terrible. "This is it," Helena whispered. "The source." Merrick lifted his rifle. "And what do you expect to find down there? A switch we can just turn off?" Helena shook her head. "Not a switch, a transmitter. Something the architects left behind. The dead aren't just rising for hunger, they're rising to power this. To summon them, they descended into the fissure, ropes cutting into their hands, boots scraping ice. The glow grew stronger as they went deeper, until the walls themselves pulsed with veins of light. At the bottom, they found it. A structure, half buried in frozen stone. Black, metallic, impossibly smooth despite the ages. Symbols carved into its surface glowed faintly, the same ones that had appeared on Earth's screens during the first alien broadcast. Helena's breath caught. It's real. The architects were here. This is a relay. The soldiers spread out, weapons raised, uneasy. The air felt heavy, charged, like standing in the presence of something alive. Helena stepped closer, brushing frost from the surface. Her fingers trembled as she traced the lines of alien script. She didn't understand the language, but she understood the intent. This was a door, and it was opening. Suddenly, the ground shook. A crack split the ice above them. The relay pulsed harder, faster, as if it had sensed their arrival. Helena stumbled back. It's activating. Merrick cursed, raising his rifle. So what the hell do we do? Helena's eyes widened. We shut it down. We destroy it. If this beacon calls the architects back, then cutting it might be the only way to buy humanity time. But as she spoke, the relay flared with blinding light. And from the ice above, a sound echoed down the fissure, low, guttural, endless. The dead had followed them. The beacon of bones. The fissure shook with the sound of the dead. Their groans rolled down the ice like thunder, 1,000 voices in unison, hungry, relentless. Shadows moved above the rim, pale figures crawling down the jagged cliffs, their limbs broken but still functioning, their jaws snapping in the cold air. Helena's breath came in clouds as she clutched her datapad. The beacon's pulse was deafening now, a constant thrum that rattled her bones. The black structure at the bottom of the fissure glowed like a living heart, veins of light racing across its surface. Captain Merrick barked orders. Positions. Cover the scientist. No one touches her. The two younger soldiers raised their rifles, aiming up the ice walls as the first of the dead came into view, emaciated, their flesh half frozen, their eyes blank white. Yet they moved with unnatural speed, sliding, clawing, tumbling down toward the strike team. Gunfire erupted. Bullets cracked skulls, shattered bones, sent corpses tumbling into the depths. But for every one that fell, 5 more appeared. Above, Helena pressed herself against the beacon. The alien script pulsed under her hands like veins filled with light. She didn't understand it, but she felt its rhythm. Not random, not chaos, it was language. Helena. Merrick roared over the gunfire. Whatever you're doing, do it faster. I'm not doing anything, she shouted back. I'm trying to listen. The first wave of the dead hit the ground. They smashed into the ice, bones breaking, limbs twisting, but they rose again, crawling, dragging themselves forward. One soldier screamed as he was dragged down beneath clawed hands, his rifle firing wildly into the air before falling silent. Merrick cut through them with his blade, blood and black ichor spraying his visor. He cursed, kicking bodies back, but even dismembered corpses kept moving, pulling themselves forward with fingerless stumps. Helena's datapad flashed violently. Lines of alien code scrolled across the screen, input she hadn't triggered. The beacon was reaching into her equipment, rewriting it. Her throat tightened. It's responding to me. Then shut it down. Merrick bellowed. I can't, she snapped. It's not a machine, it's a mind. This whole structure is alive. Above them, the dead were pouring in endless numbers, their shrieks mixing with the howl of the storm. Merrick's last soldier went down screaming, pulled into a sea of teeth. Merrick's rifle clicked empty, and he drew his sidearm, firing point blank into a skull that refused to shatter. Vera, he roared again. Helena's hands trembled as she pressed them to the glowing surface of the beacon. The alien script shifted, forming patterns she could almost recognize, as though the thing was trying to communicate. Images flooded her mind. A great hall of black stone. Towering beings of light. The earth as it had been millions of years ago, untouched, seeded with life. And the architects, faceless, watching, bending humanity's ancestors like clay. They hadn't built the beacon as a weapon. They had built it as a leash. And it was tightening. Her voice cracked. I think I can rewrite it. Merrick kicked a corpse back into the fissure wall, his knife buried to the hilt in its throat. You think? I don't know what else to do. She focused, her mind locking onto the rhythm of the light. She typed furiously on her datapad, feeding in counter patterns, noise meant to break the beacon's cycle. The script fought her, correcting itself, rewriting faster than any human could type. The beacon pulsed brighter, so bright the fissure filled with blue light. And then the voices came. Not the dead, not the Kethari, something older, something vast. You should not be here. The words weren't sound. They were carved into her skull, immense and merciless. We made you. We unmake you. That is the law. Helena gasped, blood dripping from her nose. The architects. Merrick grabbed her shoulder, shaking her. What are they saying? They're here, she whispered. Or pieces of them. This beacon, it's not just a transmitter. It's a doorway. They're coming back. The fissure trembled. Ice cracked. The dead surged harder, as though driven by a new command. Merrick and Helena were being pressed against the beacon, corpses clawing at their legs, snapping at their throats. And then the sky above the fissure split with light. A lance of energy struck the ice, vaporizing hundreds of corpses in a single blast. The ground shook as another beam carved through the rim, throwing bodies into the storm. The Kethari had arrived. Their ships descended like burning spears, metallic shards that unfurled into weapons Helena couldn't comprehend. Beams of pure force scythed through the infected, turning the fissure into a slaughterhouse. But their voices came too, piercing Helena's mind as clear as the architects had. Step away, human. You cannot close what they left behind. Helena staggered, caught between two alien minds fighting inside her skull, the cold, ancient command of the architects and the sharp, urgent voice of the Kethari. Why? She whispered aloud, clutching her head. Why stop me if I can shut it down? The Kethari envoy's voice was calm, almost pitying. Because you cannot. The beacon is not meant to be closed by your kind. Your struggle only awakens them faster. Step away, and we will do what must be done. Merrick spat, driving his knife through another corpse's eye. And what's that? The Kethari's answer chilled Helena's blood. We will sever the chain. All of it, every human, infected or not. It is the only way to end what was started. Helena's eyes widened in horror. The Kethari hadn't come to save them. They hadn't even come to purge part of humanity. They had come to erase all of it. Her datapad pulsed again, code rewriting itself under her trembling fingers. A message formed, jagged and alien, but understandable. Choose. Cut the chain, or let it bind you forever. The architects. The Kethari. Both demanding the same thing, in different words. Surrender or extinction. But Helena's heart burned with defiance. No, she whispered. She jammed her hands back onto the beacon, forcing her mind into its pulse, ignoring the splitting pain in her skull. You made us. You tried to end us. But you don't get to choose anymore. We choose. The light flared white hot. The dead screamed, and for the briefest moment, Helena felt something break, like a thread snapping after being pulled too tight. The beacon's pulse stuttered. Merrick shielded her with his body as the fissure exploded in blinding light, corpses disintegrating, ice walls collapsing. The last thing Helena saw before darkness swallowed her was the alien ship above, and the Kethari's furious voice echoing in her mind. You don't know what you've done. The last stand of the living. The world burned. Cities once alive with laughter and traffic were reduced to glowing husks under alien bombardments. Entire coastlines vanished beneath mushrooming waves as the undead hordes pressed ever forward, unaffected by fire, plague, or hunger. Humanity's fragile hope, its desperate call to the stars, had been answered, but the help that came was anything but salvation. The aliens had not come as guardians. They had come as judges. Their warships hovered over Earth like silent gods, unleashing weapons that tore swaths of the undead apart with beams of searing light, yet never enough to end the tide. The dead replenished faster than they could be destroyed, and though alien weaponry rained devastation on zombies, it was also devastating Earth itself, obliterating buildings, forests, even the humans still hiding among the ruins. To the alien council, there was no distinction. A planet consumed by the infection was no longer worth saving. It was to be cleansed. Sterilized. The survivor resistance. Deep in the tunnels of New Geneva, once Switzerland, now a hallowed sanctuary of survivors, Captain Elias Moreau stood before his ragtag council. Soldiers with hollow eyes, children clutching rifles too big for their shoulders, and scientists with trembling hands all looked to him. "The aliens won't save us," Elias said, his voice ragged from weeks of shouting, fighting, and running. "They see us as contaminated, the same as the dead. To them, humanity is already over." A ripple of despair moved through the crowd, but Elias slammed his fist against the table. "But we are not finished. Do you hear me? We are not finished." Behind him, Drive, Lin Nguyen unrolled blueprints scavenged from an alien battlefield, a cracked tablet still humming with strange light. "We found this in the wreckage of one of their war machines. It's not just a weapon schematic. It's a control signal. The aliens don't just fire beams from orbit, they broadcast. Their ships resonate with a frequency that stuns the undead, slows them down." The survivors leaned forward, desperate for meaning. "If we can hijack that frequency," Lin continued, "we can turn it against both enemies. A command strong enough to shut down the undead, and maybe even disrupt the alien fleet." Elias's jaw tightened. It was madness. It was impossible. It was their only chance. Infiltration. The target, an alien relay ship hovering over the ruins of Paris, its colossal form blotting out the stars. Protected by layers of drones and undead swarms still crawling through the city, it was as close to suicide as any mission could be. And yet, under the cover of storm clouds and ash, Elias led his strike team through the carcass of the city. Broken cathedrals stood like gravestones. Fires smoldered in the skeletons of cars. The moans of the undead echoed like an endless funeral dirge. "Steady," Elias whispered as they crept beneath collapsed bridges and across flooded streets. "Remember, if we fail, there is no tomorrow." The team carried with them the signal hijacking device, a crude fusion of human ingenuity and alien technology, powered by a reactor salvaged from a downed drone. It hummed faintly, vibrating through the pack on Dr. Nguyen's back. Above, the alien ship pulsed with eerie lights. It was alive, almost organic, its surface rippling as though it breathed. The survivors reached the base of the relay tower, a massive spire that extended from the ship into the earth like a root. Undead swarmed its base, drawn to the alien energy. Elias raised his rifle. "No noise," he warned. "Blades only." They waded into the horde with machetes, knives, and axes, the wet crunch of skulls muffled under the rain. Every swing drained strength, every stumble risked disaster. By the time they carved a path through, half the team was bloodied, their faces blank with exhaustion. But they made it to the base. The alien response. As Dr. Nguyen connected the device to the relay core, alarms rippled across the alien ship. Lights flared. Drones descended like mechanical hornets. "Hold them," Elias roared, gunning down the first wave. Plasma fire scorched the ground, vaporizing soldiers into ash, but the survivors did not break. They had nowhere left to run. Nguyen's hands shook as she worked, alien glyphs streaming across the cracked tablet. Almost, I just need." A drone smashed into the platform, sending sparks and bodies flying. Elias grabbed Nguyen before she tumbled into the abyss. "Finish it," he shouted, shoving her back toward the core. The survivors formed a desperate circle, firing wildly into the swarm. One by one they fell, their screams drowned in the chaos. Nguyen's voice rose above the carnage. "Signal locked. Broadcasting now." The turning. The device screamed to life. A wave of invisible energy pulsed outward, rippling through Paris, then across Europe, then farther still. The undead froze. Their jaws clattered, their eyes rolled back, and then, they fell. Millions at once, collapsing into lifeless heaps as though strings had been cut. For the first time since the plague began, silence followed. Above, the alien ship shuddered. Its lights flickered. The drones faltered midair, some crashing to the ground like broken toys. Across the sky, other warships faltered as the stolen signal hijacked their systems. Nguyen gasped, her hands glowing with alien light as if the tablet itself was feeding on her life. "It's working, but I can't control it, it's spreading too fast." Elias grabbed her shoulders. "Let it spread. If this is our last act, let it take them all." The sacrifice. The relay core began to melt, streams of liquid metal running like tears down its surface. The device was overloading, pulling power not just from the ship but from the entire alien fleet. In orbit, colossal ships flickered and died, tumbling like wounded beasts into the atmosphere. Elias turned to his remaining fighters. Only a handful were left, their faces illuminated by the burning sky. "We did it," he whispered. "By God, we did it." But he knew they would not live to see what came next. The overload built to a crescendo. White light consumed the tower, the city, the world. Epilogue. When the light cleared, silence fell over Earth. The undead were gone, millions of corpses lying still, their curse broken. The alien fleet lay in ruins, smoldering wrecks scattered across continents and oceans. The atmosphere reeked of ash and ozone, but the moans of the dead had ceased. From the tunnels of New Geneva, survivors emerged. Children blinked into the gray daylight. Soldiers laid down their weapons, stunned. For the first time in years, the air was not filled with screams. Humanity had survived, but barely. Elias Moreau and his strike team did not return. Their names became legend, whispered among campfires and carved into stone. The device they unleashed had not just saved Earth, it had warned the stars. For out there, in the black between suns, other civilizations had watched. They had seen the humans call for help, and then destroy their would-be saviors. And in the silence of space, a new truth spread like wildfire. Humanity had faced the dead and the gods, and had not bowed.